This is the If More Let's Divide podcast.
Yo, Charlie guys, what happened? Welcome to the If More Let's Divide podcast. It is us again in the zone, and we are about to begin.
Asemaba.
Yes, like Fred is saying, today's episode is going to be very, very, very heavy. I know it's going to be based on topics that I enjoy talking about, but yet I don't know much about.
Yep.
So we have someone who is going to expound and dissect and bisect things for us, for Fred especially to understand and maybe change his perspective on a few things. Chai Fred, what happened?
Chai, bro, happy,
What do you expect from this episode?
Education, pretty much, but also to kind of get a view of what's happening, where the country is going, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Because if it's like maybe you just go give up on Ghana.
Without further ado, since, time is not on our side, even before we start, help us welcome Oliver, community mobilizer for Fix the Country.
Yes, sir.
Charlie, Oliver, what they having? What's going on?
Charlie, I'm tired.
Yeah, I've been trying to get you here,
After the Nana must go, I think.
Yeah.
The 5th November.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So, do you have all of these days in your head?
Actually, no, every day we protest.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times, the days we choose some, we link them to some specific event.
Yeah.
Or it always has to be some historic thing. So it's always consistent. Like, for instance, the last one we do right now was Nkrumah 21st September.
Yeah.
But in 2021, 21st September, we had the Western Region demonstration in Takrady on the same day.
Oh, okay.
And then before that, we had the 4th August 2021 Founders Day. So we always try to aim for the holidays.
Causing chaos, mayhem. Fred, I don't know, should we start this on a light note or...
Chai. There's nothing light about this man.
Oh, it's very light.
From what I've read so far, and the journey he's been on.
And I introduced him just like that, community mobilizer. But I think he has done the work. He has worked for various firms, different, organizations and all that. Why are you happy when you are described as that man who is into demonstration, protest, and because you have so many other dope things that you have done and that you are still doing.
I think at the point now is the most content I feel. So I don't shy away from it. It's like what I'm into now. Like I look back on some of the things I do in the past, particularly my professional life.
Yeah. And
I know that the drive behind a lot of what I was doing was very focused on money. So, I don't kind of look back at it and say oh wow, those are the things I want to be associated for.
Yeah.
Now I feel like there's something which much more impactful, which is much more clear-eyed, and there's a sense and purpose and drive behind what we are doing. So I'm more even happier to be associated with today than.
Yeah.
But I have a past, and if there's anything, I kind of want to. I want the past or what some of the things I do in the past, people will look at them and say you know what? Yeah, maybe it shouldn't always be like this. This shouldn't only be the path of everybody. There's so many different parts of some of the things you're trying to do.
Do you have free times? And I'm saying free times. Is there any day where you don't think about Ghana and you just recline in your seat and listen to some good old Ebu Taylor or Daddy Lumba or something?
No, the funny thing is, as I'm talking about this, I remember that the last time I had a bit of pause
Yeah.
to everything that you do. So my partner actually be a very great fan of the show.
Oh.
So she's the one who's always, oh, have you listened to this one? Have you
Oh,
heard this
Charlie.
one?
Oh,
So they
thanks, thanks.
they always
Thanks,
put me
thanks,
on.
thanks. Shouts.
So she always put me on. So the last time, like she was in Ghana, we kind of took some time out to be out in the country. And so as we did drive back, we were listening to, I think, the one you guys did with David Bolton.
Oh, that was a good episode.
Yeah. So that's like that was about 2 months ago.
Okay.
So I think people around me are quite insistent on me being able to take some time off.
Yeah,
and trying
yeah.
to recharge.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people, if I do something, unless I drop dead, you know, like, because I mean, she's always saying to people like this, where unless it crash, I start sick or something, then I'll rest and then I go again because I'm like, so. But it's also because I get ADHD.
Oh.
And so we are people who are like very intense on something, or we're easily distracted as well. You know?
How did you end up on this path?
So you know the bizarre thing is, the first ever demonstration I ever went to was actually not in Ghana. It was also one of the first ones that I organized. So I was in graduate school. I was in graduate school.
Multinational.
I did graduate school at the time. So this was in, you know, it was during the South Africans, they do the fees must fall protest.
Yeah.
And myself and another colleague of mine in the class, a South African girl, were sitting there and kind of thinking, like, how do we show solidarity to what is happening in South Africa at this time? And then it became a much deeper question about, well, it shouldn't just be about solidarity, like this be other people that my problem where you won't show, but internalize the conversation around you and kind of reflect on how do you bring back those kind of things here. And I remember as I go Harvard the first time, the very first orientation they did, like they were talking about, like the guy was talking casually about this, the crest of the law school, the Harvard Law School, which is like, oh yeah, this is the family crest of the royal family. They were slaveholders. Like they were dealing in slaves and then they made money and gave to the law school. So we're using their crest. And like in that moment, it hit me like, what a bizarre, like what a very bizarre thing.
Yeah.
You know, so as we talk about this thing, it was like, okay, let's have a conversation within this space.
Yeah.
This thing that is so surrounding as this crest thing, why is it representative of what the Harvard Law School is? It has to go. So then we started Royal Mass 4, because Royal is the family name. And then we decided that, you know, we're going to, start thing and going around, talking to different students groups and different bodies. Like, this is why you guys need to join this conversation. And we can make it a broader conversation about, you know, decolonizing the legal curriculum. Like, why are we producing lawyers who do not reflect on what social justice means and all these things around us? The racial legacy of the school, you know, black and brown people who don't get access to institutions like Harvard. What is the law school doing? Things like that. So then we started and reorganized the protest. And then it grew from there into sit-ins and things. People would go class for like a whole period till the committee was formed and the crest was removed, right? And then at some point, Charlie, it became even way more intense because one of the things about the social justice issues in the US is that it sucks you in. Like it's every day, you know, at some point there's burnout. So as I was coming out of law school, the funny thing is that it starts to shape your choices professionally as well. But up until that point, like my whole life be about, you know, accumulate. What do you want to do? What do you want to go from here? I want to do this kind of thing. So if you look at my background and kind of my CV, like I've done so many things for somebody who is, you know, in his early 30s. And it's just like, what am I... I'm always chasing something. There's always a high, a professional high you want to get onto something, right? So those were the periods when I started to kind of pause about what is our role in this life. You know, I think that's the period when I started questioning more.
Like you said, the last thing you said, like with your age, I feel you have been there and you have done that. I think there was a point in time when you were even working for the Ghana government, right?
I mean, this was so I schooled in Morocco. I went to Morocco, and then when I was coming back to Ghana, Charlie, at the time I remember, so I was around 22, I think. So I'd done my master's then.
22.
Yeah, and all my colleagues then I was in Morocco. All my colleagues everybody was going to do their PhD in France, Canada, and everybody was like. Because it was a class of 16 people, so everybody was being trained for academia, essentially. And like I was like, you know what, I'd been away from Ghana for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was feeling more and more that I needed to come back. I left Ghana, I think I was around 16. And I was like, you know what? I've not lived in this place as an adult.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to experience what it meant. So I just come down. And at the time, we were doing the Constitution Review thing.
Yeah.
So then I was engaged as part of the Constitution Review Commission. And, I come into this project and it was all about reform of the country, things where they work and things like that. And I was steeped in that conversation. I was like one of the researchers for the commission. And that was what my whole life was about. It was like a small research team. And like we'll go and sit, like we'll have retreats outside of Accra.
Yeah.
And we're taking every clause of the constitution by constitution. Like,
Wow.
why is this not working?
Yeah.
What can we do? What kind of tweaks? Let's take institution, judiciary. How do you... So like that conversation all over before we produce this, 1,000-page report. And I was so hopeful. I was a child, right? I haven't lived the country's dysfunction for so long. And so then I was very optimistic that, these things were going to kick in and Ghana was going to be different, like all these things. And then the politics took over, right? And at the time, the commission was appointed by Mills.
Yeah.
Then Mills dies, Mahama comes. And even still the NDC administration, they issue a white paper and like 70 to 80% of the recommendations were rejected. And it's like, then even the ones they accepted didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, so this is kind of talking a bit about my career. Before I came into Ghana, so as I did Morocco, I'd met a number of the Ghanaian diplomats, so Ghanaian ambassadors. Before, the first one was Kobran, who was like a mentor to me. That's Kofi Annan brother.
Oh, okay.
So he kind of took a liking to me from very young then. And it was like every diplomatic event, he would invite me to come there and just socialize with people. And then the next one also came, Kote something. And unknown to me, as I left Morocco, come Ghana, he had recommended me to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that this guy is interested in, talk to him, whatever. And so I was there when the Director of Administration for Foreign Affairs called me, say, I had been recommended to him if I was interested in there, what am I doing? I said, I just come down to Ghana. But I have to do my national service as well. I haven't done it. And it's like, okay, cool. We go recommend for them to send you there. But then that's when I got into Constitution Review Commission, so I wasn't even keen on it anymore.
Yeah.
As I finished Constitution Review Commission, we go into Law and Development Consulting, Law and Development Associates, we called it. Then I get an email that we're supposed to write some exams for the Foreign Affairs. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay. I'm surprised that they followed through, even over a year or how many years. They were supposed to go to some place for Tema. So I said, okay, I get some afternoon meeting with some clients. So I said, okay, I'll rush in quickly and do whatever exams it is and come. I catch there 5,000 people. So this is not be like some headhunting anything. It was just like
mass.
Yeah, it was just like a mass thing. And then the thing was supposed to start at 9. By 1 p.m. they don't start nothing.
I know.
So I was getting just frustrated. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. I think that some people said with me, they started leaving. Yeah. And at that point, I lied to the person I was supposed to meet her that we just had to reschedule the meeting. Yeah. So it's like I had nothing to do it. So I went through that and I did it. Then call me. Like about 2 or 3 months later for an interview that had been shortlisted. And I was shortlisted for the legal department. And strangely, I did law, French civil law, and I'd done a master's in international law, but I wasn't a Ghanaian lawyer. So I didn't even call to the bar in Ghana yet at the time, even though I was doing Constitution Review. So it's almost like the more academic parts of law rather than the practice. So then they say for interview for the legal department for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I go there, again, it was a bunch of lawyers, 7 years at the bar, this at the bar. This.
Gurus.
What's the point? So as we go in there, I suppose the only dividing factor was that I do a master's in international law at the time before I went in, and none of them had done that. So as I go to the interview conversation, they asked me about, be lawyer for Ghana in sense. So what's up? I said, I have no interest in being a lawyer in Ghana, to be honest, because, and plus, you guys don't need somebody who's qualified here. If you have any legal issues, the Attorney General Department takes over. So you don't need that. You need somebody who is professionally trained in international law. And that kind of got the gig. So I was doing the foreign affairs. But unknown to them, I was preparing to do the bar in Ghana.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't want to say it because, of course, it doesn't put me in any competitive position.
Yeah.
Looking at the people that did outside,
Yeah.
right? And then secondly, I didn't want to disclose that I was going to be continuing to study while working, and it wasn't going to be.
I actually thought you were going to say you didn't want to disclose to them that this is your plan. In the future, I'm going to do this.
Causing trouble.
No,
Wow.
I mean, up on this point again, remind yourself, like, it not come my mind.
Yeah.
I knew that the country was fucked up. There's no
Yeah.
question about it.
Yeah.
Like, I've been around for long enough. But the connection between, like, street level activism and any sense that it could help improve, it wasn't even crossing my mind. Any of the demonstrations or anything people they organized was mainly political parties. Fun fact actually, when I was in high school here, I was so much in love with Nanado.
Which school?
So I went to a command.
Okay.
I was so much in love with Nanado.
Yeah.
And I kind of like became interested in the MPP. The Rawlings had been in power for so long.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the point? And I've always been a non-conformist in some regard. So it didn't make sense for he had been in power for 20 years or whatever at the time.
Yeah.
So I was very enamored by him. But then I left the country, and there's something that distance creates from the politics.
Yeah.
That when you're away from it, you start more thinking about why is the country fucked up rather than why is this party or that party in power, right? So that I went through that process. So as I come back in the beginning, I was kind of thinking, okay, why not the CPP? So I started going to CPP meetings and like following those things. And the whole conversation was very Nkrumahist, and I was like,
Just dated, man.
like why are we having these conversations? And I remember one of those big meetings they had, I kind of stood up and said, listen, I am drawn to the CPP because I'm interested in an alternative to our politics. But I imagine there are people like me who are not Nkrumahist, and there has to be a place for them in the party. Oh, then the youth wing stand up. I remember this very well. They started chanting, Obi Kase, Odo CPP, no Nkrumah, or your truthful. I was like, what the fuck? So I started becoming disillusioned with that and kind of walked away.
Yeah.
It was almost, it felt like a cult.
It felt very cultish, right? It felt like there was no independent reasoning
Outside of Nkrumah's ideology.
Outside of Nkrumah and what it means. And there's a way to be contemporary, I don't even know the right word, contemporarian about Nkrumah and kind of think about what the legacy of what they were doing means within our times. And interestingly, now, my social media moniker is Osajifo, that I've come full circle.
Yeah.
But not because I've grown to become this Nkrumahist, but because I'm drawn to the levels of organizing for freedom that they did, what they were inspired by, that thing, more than the content of some of the things he was saying. So there's a lot you can draw from in terms of how do you organize for freedom.
Yeah, nice.
Rather than,
Earlier you had mentioned about being on the commission to the
Constitution review.
Okay. It's something that I care about deeply because there's a clause in there. I don't know even if it's a clause or a statute or whatever it is, act. So please, the expertise, share. But
I'm sure you're talking about the indemnity clause.
About
the indemnity clauses?
For Rawlings.
I know that you have your own Rawlings, this thing. But, so that's one of the things which, for me, it's we have to have a holistic conversation about the Constitution. So, for instance, indemnity clauses cannot be removed unless you change the Constitution.
Okay.
And I've always been on the path of a new Constitution for a new generation, particularly because of my experiences from the Constitution Review Commission. The Constitution Review Commission was conservative as fuck.
Yeah.
Like there were folks in there in the research commission, the research team, I was the only person who was progressive on, for instance, on sexual minority rights. Right? That we need to think this thing carefully in terms of if we are in a particular place in history and we have to be able to consider what it means and what humanity demands of us. So it turned into fights even on many occasions between myself and other people. Eventually on that, for instance, on sexual minority rights, the commission recommends we are going to leave it and let the Supreme Court decide. And this for me was like evidence of the kind of fight I had to do for the commission not to say anything, not progressive, which would undermine the kind of work we're trying to do. And for instance, on the question of indemnity clauses, we can't touch it. But when I say the commission was conservative, a lot of the times, some of the recommendations we were proposing, the commission would say, we are not sure whether the politicians will accept this. And so then scale it back.
Yeah.
And so it was almost as if we were auditioning the documents for persons
Yeah,
who were supposed
yeah,
to. And then they rejected it.
Yeah.
So rather a process which is much more authentic and true and the best of ideas, which goes to the people for the people to decide, rather than appealing to some small people who will decide ultimately whether or not to accept what they know is evidently better for the country, but we are unsure whether or not politicians will let go of power.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm also asking in part and hoping to be educated on is, I feel as though that indemnity clause, correct me if I'm wrong, it covers other presidents as well, right? After Rawlings, then it covers everybody that feels that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I suspect that these leaders, when they come into power and realize that that provision in the Constitution covers Rawlings and then all of them after him, it makes them reluctant, but they also know it gives them cover because whatever they do, is that accurate?
No, so it covers Rawlings and everybody before Rawlings.
Oh.
Now, for those who are after Rawlings, they do have a certain level of immunity. So, like, for instance, if within 3 years no action is brought against Akufo-Addo, that's it. He has immunity for anything he has done while in office. And
When he leaves office,
when
3
he
years
leaves
after?
office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, for somebody like him, it is even a better guarantee for him if somebody from his party, say, Bawumia becomes president, the likelihood of any actions being brought against him diminishes. And after that, that's it.
Okay.
It's become sort of an indemnity.
So the 3 years
Blanket.
you got to fight through the 3 years.
You have to be
with
able to
nobody.
bring in all actions, anything he has done, whether discovered or
And who
whatever.
brings those actions?
Now, that's the thing. It's both criminal and civil. Presumably criminally, only the states can bring any criminal actions against him. Civil, individuals can sue, but the vast majority of things which he would have done while in office is also the states that has to bring civil claims, which is also quite unlikely. But yeah, it also kind of works into the same framework where we are providing immunity for persons who come.
So from your point of view, what would be the right call if Ghanaians were to have a referendum right now to say we need a new constitution like we're all hoping for? What would have to change in order to hold our leaders accountable? Because for me, it feels like the accountability part is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've reflected on this a lot, and I think one of the biggest gamble of our constitution is that it does one of the things that like foreign leaders talk about. Like, for instance, when Obama came, it was like, it's not people, individuals, it's institutions, right? But the challenge is that, we say that, we have these institutions which are supposed to be check and balances and whatever things we're talking about, and it's the main framework for accountability. The problem is that politicians have figured that you can capture institutions. And it's very easy to capture institutions. And when that happens, then what? Like, for instance, who would bring an action against anybody if the Attorney General doesn't move?
Yes.
Nothing happens. Like, a whole people in SAL can be denied the right to vote. And everybody says it's bad. Then nothing happens. 3 years, nothing has happened. And nothing is done to remedy it because those who are supposed to do it don't do anything. So I think the best guarantee for this is our constitution creates a distance between those who lead us and us. We have to find a way to bring the people back into the process. And by this I mean, if there's a people-driven mechanism to initiate an impeachment of the president, would have led that process already. So the people directly that initiate, if it is 10,000, 100,000 votes we need to initiate an impeachment process, we would then collect those signatures to do it. If there are recall elections where you vote an MP, it's not performing, you don't wait. You can initiate a recall process. When it takes certain things like even prosecutions, right? So there's a study which was done which shows that the vast majority of non-prosecution decisions that are made affect women the most. Sexual violence decisions, sexual violence offenses and things like that are not prosecuted. But we used to have what we call private prosecutions. So that if organizations can then, the people themselves can organize themselves and say, they're taking on certain things which they're going to prosecute themselves. They're able to do. So we have to be able to think through the Constitution and says, what is the basic assumptions? The basic assumptions of the Constitution which have failed. How then do we rethink the framework in a way that we bring the people in at every level where institutions have been taken over by power and political power? So that people like me or persons who are doing some of these things will not feel like, whatever it is, we have to be able to cry for those who are in leadership to hear and do something. We can then initiate things on our own. That for me is the biggest, disruptive factor to be able to achieve accountability.
You have some?
No, you go.
So, following in that line of thinking, I know somebody on the other side might be saying, how do we prevent such a provision from becoming chaotic? So, for instance, you voted a president into office. NDC is a quite big party, or MPP is a big party. If they want trigger impeachment process, they have 100,000 people easy.
Yeah.
So if they can, for the sake of wasting the country's time or being political, just vindictive, and they can trigger that, what can we put in the system to prevent such a, such actions being purely political when there's no merit to impeachment, like wasting the country's time, bringing the country to a halt, the economy is, because when the president is being impeached, it's going to be, I'm sure, very...
Yeah, so I'll expand that question, and I'll add even another fear as well. So there's something in Kenya which Kenya has introduced called the Popular Initiative, where citizens can collect signatures to propose a constitutional referendum issue about something, and then it has to go to referendum for people to vote for, right? And one of the bigger questions I've always been wondering is, what if people decide on a wave of some anti-Semitism or anti-whatever it is and says, we're going to introduce a clause in Ghanaian constitution that says we don't want foreigners to ever come into a country. What is there to stop it, right? So those are valid questions in the ways in which sort of a majoritarianism can push to the extreme, can result in certain excesses. But let's come back to the initial question you asked. As it stands now, 97 or 93 MPs can initiate impeachment of the president now. The NDC has more than that in parliament. But it's never been on the table for them, even though we've pushed them so long on the issue that you need only 1/3 of members of parliament to initiate the process. So do it. The fact of our system is that there's a certain gentleman's agreement that exists between the parties.
Yes.
So that's why they won't prosecute corrupt officials. Like the government can come in place and we still be talking about how the NDC was corrupt, but will not initiate prosecutions. Well, if you say you have all the machinery of the state, why not do it?
Why not, yeah.
And they will also come and not do the same. They also not do they won't do it. Because they kind of understand that, Charlie, there's a certain limit to what we for push each other on. Because at the end of the day, I get my 8 years, you get your 8 years, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, on the question of citizens doing that thing and whether parties are behind it. So, for instance, in Kenya, in the operationalization of the Popular Initiative, one of the things Uhuru Kenyatta and co did, they backed some coalition to try to do that, to change some powers which would have prevented Ruto from becoming president. And then when they did, I was challenged in court. And the court said, the whole idea of this initiative is that it has to be the citizens, not politics and politicians backing and pushing it. If not, it defeats the idea. So there has to be a mechanism that senses even the way in which it is used in order to ensure that, again, the instinct of our political class is to corrupt whatever systems and institutions we put in place. And we have to be able to design a constitutional framework that understands that the people with a design given, their whole instinct is to how do we corrupt whatever it is. Without that mindset of approaching the whole thing as a holistic framework, we won't succeed. This is one of the reasons why I'm always apprehensive when people ask me, give me the top 10 changes to the Constitution. And I'm saying that it's not about piecemeal amendments. It's a framework of governance. Our preamble says we're trying to create a framework that secures for us the blessings of prosperity and liberty.
Yeah.
So if it's a framework, you can't just touch one thing here and say, we are good to go.
Okay.
You have to rethink the structure.
You said, you made mention of you like finishing your master's when you were 22. You know, me, I don't like school. Fred, they like school. Me,
somewhat.
Me, I don't really like school. What or who pushed you to reach, that height in such, a quick and short time?
The funny thing was, like, I was one of those boys when I grew up. They don't share that they like learning. I didn't. So, like in my family, we had a lot of books that we, like, my grandmother's place, like our library was like huge. My uncle is in the US. All he does was ship containers of books. And I can get lost in that. So if I sit to your body and I'm reading something, you can call me like 1,000 times. And my mindset no day there. But it was always my own thing rather than a structured academic thing. And for which reason, like in my early years, like in those classes when I didn't need to study, I always did exceptionally well. But those ones where I have to sit down and I wasn't the best student in those classes. And I would always be reading something else. So like the appetite for reading and all those things. And that's kind of why I ended up in Morocco. because I was immediately interested in the Israel-Arab conflict.
Oh, okay. I was
From
actually
my, from
coming
my readings, I was very interested in Palestine and what was happening there, and so I was like, okay. I mean, I get to be close to the action, but not within the Middle East. I probably get to learn Arabic and then kind of understand what it meant. So that intellectual curiosity drove me to Morocco and be like, nah, I'm not going to go to Legon. And yeah, so it was kind of that drive, rather than I wanted to be in school, kind of thing that was keeping me going. And then when I finished my bachelor's, and that's the interesting thing. So I went there and ended up doing law because Morocco doesn't have political science as we have as a study. Actually, political science started in very recently from America. And they have a different very distinct to it. But the way in which the law is taught is different from how we teach law here. It's very philosophy and jurisprudence, kind of legal thinking and theory oriented, rather than here, which is more rule based. You know, and so again, it was more curiosity, and so I was already, by the time I was finishing, becoming interested in international law and international science and things like that, and ended up doing a master's in international law. You know, before coming down. So as I was coming down again, I stopped. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do a PhD at this point. I'm just going to go back to Ghana, work a bit, and then maybe think through it. Yeah, and then I came to Ghana, and then it was like you get to a point that the system is saturated. I felt like it was like. And I was like, okay, I was going to go back to graduate school. And then I left and I did graduate school with the intention. At the time when I was leaving, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my PhD now. And for Harvard Law School, you have to do another master's. If you want to do it at Harvard, you have to do another master. You have to do a master's there before you can do the PhD there. So it's like, okay. So I went there and I did that. And then when I was coming towards the end of it, I became disillusioned again. And this one is a different one because I started to wonder why Africans really like chase book like that. Like everybody else around me, the people who were teaching me, they didn't have a PhD or anything like that. They had written brilliant works and things like that. But it was like we're always after a degree or something, you know? And then there was like so many job offers as well. You start getting into your head. There was the World Bank, I had a law firm in DC, and then International Court of Justice. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try something new. And at that time, my partner also was going to the Netherlands to study at Leiden. And I decided, okay, I'll take the International Court of Justice thing. And I went there. So then, out of school, worked there for a year. Incidentally, the guys I rejected, the law firm, they were retained by Ukraine to represent them as Russia attacked Crimea. So they had come to the International Court to come to argue the case. And they met me there. They're like, oh, this boy who rejected us. So I had dinner with the partners, and they were like, they renewed the offer again. And then I left and I went to DC. And started doing that. Yeah, I did that, joined the UN, and then at some point I said it became more like the intellectual curiosity came back again. You know, it's like maybe this is an itch I needed to scratch. And
so basically, you weren't pushed by any mom or any father or anything.
No.
Like me, my mom would push me, but still, you won't get to me.
My dad was actually very strict in my younger years.
Okay.
But I remember I left Ghana when I was 16. And
why though? Why did you leave Ghana?
So that's the thing. Like, as I go to school, I was jumped a class.
Okay.
So I ended up finishing high school at 16. You know, which is, I think, by Ghanaian standards, a bit earlier than other people. And then Morocco came up, and I left for Morocco. And so then I went and started studying. But then at this point, I started living on my own. And so at that point, and you know, these were the times when cell phones have no shit, there was no WhatsApp, nothing. So that sort of the parental thing over you.
You didn't have BBM.
Disintegrate. No. BBM came actually a little later. We had Yahoo Messenger though.
We
had Yahoo Messenger.
MSN.
You know, we had those things. But those things we were using it to chat like
girls and all that.
Right, Charlie. I mean, I dated some girl for MSN for like 3 years.
I know you, Charlie.
Like we're doing those. I don't know. I think it was many MSN. There was no Skype even at the time.
AOL2 had this messenger that you.
That was the most popular one to start with. And then
no, because you were in the States.
In the US was definitely AOL. But outside, it wasn't that much.
Wow.
You know. So it wasn't. I wasn't very school driven. I was intellectually curious. And I was reading a lot, but it wasn't like translating necessarily into. Like I have degrees or I have that. But there was a point in my life when it became then, like opens professional doors. Like everybody was talking about, oh wow, you did this place, you did that thing, and it was just like that became the main drive of some of the things I was doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dope.
I think.
Dope. So, make I go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, now let's get a little bit serious. You have spoken to us about how easy it is for you to be everywhere in the world. You've been to Morocco, you just name it. Why are you still here?
You know the funny thing? When I left, after the Constitution Review Commission years, Foreign Affairs, and I left Ghana, anybody would tell me about Ghana, I say, you demand. Like, I was like, I'm done. Like, I've given the best years of my youth to this country. There was a time when I had real hope. I saw that project not work out. There's no point. This country is not going to change. So anybody who contact me, what I should do, I was like, listen, take the map, I'll show you. You see those lines there? They're imaginary. There's no way you have to restrict yourself to that environment. Look for opportunities elsewhere. Do this. How can I help you, support you? I was like one of the probably responsible for some of the biggest brain drains for the country. I was disillusioned. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But at the back of your mind, right, no matter how disillusioned you are, no matter who you are, like even if you are living abroad, right, as well 2 or 3 Ghanaians are gathered, we still talk about how Ghana fuck up.
Yeah.
You know, like it never leaves you.
We love the country.
We do. It never leaves you.
Yeah.
And even though I was in that phase, I'm complaining about Ghana, but never with a plan to come back. Then Face the Country blows up, right? I mean, I was in Cambridge at the time. Face the Country blows up, and I'm like, okay, this is crazy. Like, I was becoming interested in the conversation. I was like, let's organize a protest. You know, maybe young Ghanaians have to do something because the way the country is going, it doesn't make sense. NDC, MPP, that kind of thing. You know, so I became more and more sucked into it. I was devoting my energies into it. And one of the things about me as well is that, Charlie, I hate injustice. Like, I was one of those people where they make me literally sick.
Yeah.
And so the more pushback we got, the more I became interested in proving a point that we can do this. So the more the system was reacting, like, you guys, we won't allow you to do this, the more I was like, okay, let's see. You know, so that's kind of how I gradually became sucked into it. It wasn't like a particular point where I was like, you know what, I'm coming back to Ghana.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can help mobilize. And for the most times, even as we're mobilizing for Face the Country and all those things, I was not in Ghana. I was outside the country. Like, I was giving interviews, I was on Zoom all the time and all those things.
Yeah, true.
That a lot of people didn't know that I wasn't based locally, you know. So I came to Ghana a couple of times during that period. Because when I left, I think I left in 2015, I hadn't come out till 2021. 6 years, I hadn't been in Ghana. So I actually transited. Like, I would do...
You came to pass through.
I would come and pass. I transited through Ghana a couple of times. Going somewhere for like some consultancy or something.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, this country, they didn't finish.
Yeah.
You know? And then, they started becoming, let's do this. Maybe this can work. Maybe this push. And I kind of felt like so many things were aligned. It was like the post-COVID era.
Yeah.
It was like we're in so much public debt. Like so many young people now, because of interconnections and things, we're becoming more open to the global world and feeling like, nah, this is not kind of... So I felt like maybe the stars are aligned, something can happen. You know, and that became something I started devoting my energy to. You know, in a more systematic way, and so the government take my passport.
They have?
Oh yeah.
Oh, still?
Oh yeah.
So you can't travel.
I mean, I'm facing trial for treason. So why not let you go?
Is that case still on?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Ghana government.
I thought it was squashed.
No. It's still on. I mean, it doesn't give up. And you see, one of the things I told myself, even when that happened, was, because of course, I knew I was going to be arrested before I came. One of the things I told myself that now that I'm stuck here, I have to make it worth their while.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why, if you've noticed, even in terms of my activism and things we are doing, there's a
spike.
Yeah, we are amping. We are amping it because I know why they are doing this, and I know why they did that, because it has to be something that breaks down your resolve and kind of really like, I want to check out and things like that. And I'm like, nah.
Whatever they want to do.
That's what I want to do. And that's the funny thing. Like, I have so many friends as well who have conversations with people in government and things like that, and they keep telling them that with this boy, this is the wrong approach. And that's true. The more you do something, the more I would go up, because it's like I don't understand why you feel like you can get away with something and for which reason
Yeah.
then let's go all the way.
Yeah.
You know.
Are there times that, like what gives you the vim? Are you not scared? You know, like what drives you?
You know, one of the things I've always actually wondered about. I was watching. I forgot even what her name is. I think it's a Ukrainian journalist who was assassinated in front of a door. You remember, right?
Yeah.
And I was always wondering to myself, like, all these people in this tremendous risk, why do you keep doing what you were doing? And I think when I reflect on myself, the more people ask me the question, I think that while you are in it and in the moment, you're so laser focused on what you want to achieve that you know latently that the risk is there, but it's not perhaps becomes a bigger motivation to want to do something.
Yeah.
But you're not constantly living in fear.
Yeah.
Like I don't. Like I take precautions. Like for so long in Ghana, I wasn't sleeping in the same place twice. Like I was always jumping Airbnb to Airbnb because I was like, okay, I need to get a place already. The same amount of money I'm going to pay for a long-term place, I can just be changing where they sleep.
Yeah.
Because I was also, it's like,
You never know.
you don't want to be foolish
Yeah.
about it. And so at least I'm going to do the minimum as much as,
Yeah.
money can afford me. I'm not complaining about money. At least I can do that. Let's do it. And I'm not one of those people who has any problems with packing and go. I can pack and go. It's not a problem with me. So I kind of just put that into it. In terms of my movement and things like that, I'm quite cautious about a number of things.
Yeah.
But beyond that, one of the things which is calming for me is that I'm like, listen, the government is the biggest bureaucracy in this country. They control the police, they control the military, they control everything. If the government wants to kill me, they will kill me.
Yes.
And for me, like I just kind of take it out of my mind that because they can kill me at any point, I can't constantly be living in fear.
Yeah.
If there are people where I'm worried about, is those people who feel themselves like I'm fanatic of some party, like what happened with UTV and some people go and there. Those people where they want some favor from the party, make them say them be something, or feel like why are you making my government look bad kind of people. French people who might do something to me more than the government. So usually, because of what I'm doing, I'm getting definitely more recognized places.
Yeah.
Like anytime somebody recognizes me, it's coming close.
Yeah.
I'm really
You're
on
on
edge.
guard.
Yeah.
It was almost like
yeah.
PTSD for me. It
Yeah.
took me a while to
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
be easing myself, and particularly sometimes the way they come to you. I watched something Trevor Noah did recently, where he was talking about how either in Kiribrode restaurant when somebody came to them and they're having lunch, and then the person was like so familiar with him, and he was very uncomfortable about it. So as he left him, brother tell him, say, first of all, you have to remember that these are people who are seeing you all the time on their screen, that they have built in their mind some kind of relationship with you, which is one-sided, you haven't built with them. And I kind of feel the same thing as well, the way in which people kind of react to me, that as apprehensive as I am, I know that they also hate him. They feel like they know me, because a lot of them would go on and watch so many of my interviews or things I've said or done, that they come to me with a thing that I am not expecting. And I'm also kind of always worried about Charlie.
Yeah.
What it could possibly be.
Yeah.
I want to ask this question because when I was younger, I used to have a certain level of passion towards change, Ghana improving. I left the country. I was still, in that sense, actively writing on Facebook, blogs, stuff like that. And then at some point, I just gave up. I have a different perspective in terms of approach, but I love what you're doing. Now, my question is, what is your view of the civil service in this country and the role they are playing in horrible governance, the country not running properly, all of that? Because I feel like they are for lack of a better way, the titibutai, right? They are fixed.
Yeah.
You come and do your ATS and go. But the civil service, they're there for as long as till they have to retire. But that's where the corruption is also.
One of the interesting things, if you had asked me this question sometime, I don't know, maybe way earlier when I was younger at least, I would have answered in a way that wasn't grounded. But because I worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and worked in the civil service, I can speak to it from a place of authority.
Okay.
One, I think that because of the nature of our politics, the persons who are slyer in moving about and navigating the politics is the civil service. They understand the ego of politicians.
Yeah.
They understand the drive and motivations of what politicians want. And their whole ethos is how to serve the politician. And so within that space, right, every person where they there, you know that if you do something, you raise your head small, you take on the system, critique, something wrong, you want to do this thing, they'll chop off your head quick. You know, so everybody they lay low. And if as much as you can accumulate, do your own thing.
Do it and go.
So the virtues of the civil service is broken. You know? But I see it because the younger ones that come in come with a sense of idealism. And it dies off.
Yeah.
It dies off quickly when you see that no way. Like even when for me, even in the beginning, it was like the little things when I entered. It was like, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there are 3 classes. We have A, B, C. So in the A class, we are like those who are being trained as diplomats for Ghana. Then you have the B class, which is supposed to be what we call the registry. So they handle like where archives and things and all of that. And then the C class is the secretarial pool. Okay? So if like there's something come with it and sign them to me, I'm expected to handwrite it and give it to the secretary to go and type. And then bring back and print and bring back and I'll correct. And then go and do the corrections and bring. Sometimes that process can introduce more errors in the process. And I'm wondering, I just come from the private sector where I had my laptop. And I couldn't, why am I going through this 3-step process? So already inefficiency also is like that whole process. And we had like one printer, me and my other colleagues who were working in the servers, they assigned the thing. I can be working on one letter and the whole day go end. And I'm just come back home and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Even as I entered there, because as me I entered self, incidentally I was teaching at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. And I was doing the law before working there. And one of my directors now, he was like one of the people who took also kind of a liking to me, is the ambassador now in Vienna. As he sits me down, he looked at me, he said, what are you doing here? He says, no, this is not a place for you. And at the time, I'm looking at the guy squarely in the face. And I was like, he actually saved me from this place.
Yeah.
You know, because, it wasn't it. It wasn't the response. It wasn't the kind of place we have created for this. And for me, one of the things even that gave me an early awakening was I remember as they come do some meeting for there, and then finish the meeting, there was some leftover food where some of the directors, they ran, go take the leftover food. And I'm like, these people have been working for 20-something years. This is not the life I envisioned for myself.
Yeah.
You know? So
after all the money they make, they left over to...
Oh, I tell you. I just kind of like... Yeah, it was just clear to me that the kind of things I wanted for myself in life, it wasn't going to provide the response.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's obvious what's happening in the country right now with the movement that you started with this Occupy Julobi House. It's making noise. The youth are talking about it, social media and everything. And I think for that, I'm even proud to be Ghanaian, to see that kind of, uprising in the youth as well, because it's easier for us to be removed from the situation. The older you get, you're a little bit more comfortable. You figured out the system, you navigate how you need to navigate. And it becomes like, Charlie, we know if we go Kolebu, we've assault somebody. Yeah. We know if we go here, because you can afford it. Yeah. Even though it's still a problem, you manage the problem. But as you're young, and if you're not in a position where you have the resources, the country is a hellhole. Yeah. My question to you is, what is, in your mind, the solution to Ghana's leadership problem? How do we get ourselves out of this fix that we're in?
It's a good sort of description of what is happening in the country now, where a lot of young people are. And somehow it makes me feel like the bargain I was making with myself, and believe that, I'm seeing a certain trajectory where if we continue pushing a lot of people are going to respond to this kind of advocacy, seeing it come to fruition in some regard. One of the things I'll come to your question. One of the things I'm particularly interested in is the culture as well. So like even when we started Face the Country, there were like 76 different songs that people were composing. That effect on culture itself is one of the things I'm very interested to see and reading, like how is the arts responding to it? And we see all of that come back together again around Occupy Julobi as well, which for me is the resonance I'm kind of hoping that we continue to get, that people within the different spaces feel like it's that we are working towards something. There's a renewed sense of hope. Because even in speaking about it and doing these things comes from a place of belief that something can change. Because like you're saying, the more you've been at it, the more cynical you get. And I'm saying, okay, how do we harness this belief that hope is here, something tangible can be achieved in our lifetime, things like that for some purpose. Now, as far as we are concerned now as a people, I think that from so much of what I see around me and conversations I've been in, one of the things that pains me and scares me the most about Ghana is we have to repair our value system. That is where the bigger problem is.
Yes.
Nobody who is getting elected and proposing a set of whatever it is can succeed without an intentional approach at creating something different in terms of what we aspire to and hoping for. The question is whether or not our politics is committed to showing that part in leadership. It is not. That's the thing that saddens me the most. So if you remember when we started with the country, the government was on this whole fix yourself thing. And one of the things I always say is that my biggest regret that it was constructed as a how do you call it? An opposite attack of fix the country rather than the vehicle towards fixing the country. So I'm saying, like, okay, if they truly believe that as proposed in leadership, what is the program? How do we get there? They're not proposing those ideas. And many people are responding to what they're seeing in our politics and understanding that Ghana, there's only one way and there's only one track to it. Accumulate money no matter how you get it, and bribe your way through. That's the way to live, and that's the essence of it. And the funny thing is that we're seeing that in the long run, particularly because the society is blossoming, it can't work for the majority of people. The majority of people are going to be more and more disenfranchised. Social inequality is going to increase. Now, one of the things I talk about is like, if Jerry and Co claimed that social inequality and employment and those things were the reason, and corruption were those things, they were doing that. Now, all of it, all the measurable scales for social inequality, unemployment, poverty, lack of access to healthcare systems, and all of those things are worse than they were then when they had that kind of population. And we cannot be caught in this cyclical thing because it won't fix the problem. So the problem then is, okay, if the value system is the problem, who is proposing a solution towards that? And whether or not social movements can create that process of change. So one of the things, for instance, is that one of our activists, one of the young boys, was arrested by the police because they were at the National Identification Authority and talking to people about Ghana, how things need to change. And the authorities there called police, and then the police came to arrest them. And the police says, okay, bring 1,000 something, make you release you. And he called me. And I said, well, you know what you have to do? And he says, yeah. It's like you have to go through the process. Make them take you go to court. Like that's there has to be a point where you disconnect and say, we're not going to pay the bribe. It's not our value system as an organization and what we are trying to stand for. So do what you have to do. But we'll go through the process. And that's where I am at now. Like, anytime police stop me about bribe, I'm like, well, Matide Okano. Like, I don't pay bribes. So if you feel like that's the way forward, I understand. And that's it. So I am hoping that this process builds that. But it's a difficult thing if it's not coming from the top down. Because for every messaging you're trying to push, you take one step forward and the systems rolls you back twice. And that, for me, is the biggest environment of change. The second thing as well is, I am not certain, I always say this, that everybody who is responding to a call, say this to change, really understands like the ethical responsibility that means, and not that they also want to get into positions of power.
Of course.
And sort themselves out. And until I am certain that change is happening in the gradual or the critical mass of people who are responding to this, we're still not there yet. And now more and more I come to see myself and my role in this process as I'm supposed to be in a period of transition. That we are then awakening certain conscience and drawing attention to certain things. And knowing that I won't see the Ghana I want to see in my lifetime, but I have to be part of the process of that baton handing over to another generation who then is much more socially aware and socially conscious about what it will take to change the country. If not, you get disillusioned, then you walk away.
I think that I'm trying on that front, and I'm still here because I can up and stand and leave. I'm still here because I always say this: my mother and my grandmother failed me and my siblings. Do I want to fail my kids? This is my home. You know, this is my home. Why should I up and stand and go to the West to like struggle?
Yeah.
I don't think, you know, it's...
You know, talking about the West, right?
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, you've lived there as well. Like, I remember, like, going driving and stopped by the police.
Yeah.
There's no point it crosses my
your
mind.
At all.
I know,
up my
boss.
wallet.
At all.
Charlie,
Like-
or to suggest or to even
it
try to
doesn't.
talk your way out of the
They are not the
situation.
best paid
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But like, our interaction never goes to there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm saying that, like, they are not angelic humans.
Yeah.
No.
They are flawed as F. You know? So there has to be certain things that we are either comfortable about and kind of decided to accept as a society, and we have to be intentional about it. It can't be just like we just say it in the air, and there's no program towards getting people there. You know, in terms of educational curriculum reform, like everything around us has to be able to socially engineer us to a process, and that social engineering is not happening.
I'll share this with you guys, try to get your thoughts on it. There's two things that bother me in this country when it comes to the way the system is running and has been set up, right? I believe that the government is very intentional and aware of the bribery system. They actually embrace it and want it to be a part of how police officers, quote unquote,
Operate,
public,
yeah.
because if you look at their salaries, the government knows that it's not sustainable, right? And the police officers know their salaries are not sustainable.
Yeah.
But they have been programmed to know that they'll get their money from the street.
Yeah.
And it's reached a point where the kind of money they are making on the street,
Crazy.
it's
Yeah.
almost impossible for any government to come in and reform and say, my guy, stop take 30,000 a month. They make we pay you now reasonably like 7,000 a month because they're already used to the money. That's number one for me. Number two is something that Oliver mentioned and you have also mentioned with our creative space. I don't feel the anger in the music because life in Ghana is fucked up. Bro, if you go to any hospital at any given moment, I've been there, I hit a lady, 37 military hospital. They asked me what the emergency was because the lady was in a car accident because they can't see blood. These are medical professionals. There's somebody laying on a stretcher in a pool of blood. Blood dried up and they're like, even him, we don't consider him an emergency. At what point do we recognize the
What?
cancer and the rot that we're living in? So social awakening is important. People have to come to terms with what are we the people even willing to accept? But our culture has made us so comfortable with Charlie, no kufio, yenko kanwasem, bring your pastor. Somebody has stolen from their workplace. And instead of it being dealt with, the Ebusianfo go and bring some pastor, and the pastor will talk to you at home and say, oh, would you family this, that. So there's no real moral fiber in our society, to be honest. I think it's a scary place to be. And for me personally, I know you say I don't go to protests and all of that, but
Why though?
Tombo, as far as
you have told me before,
Yes.
but for the sake of
Look,
the show.
as far as I can remember, I've been protesting this country.
Okay.
I've been protesting
Fair.
this country from before I was even teen.
Yeah.
I've written things, I've said things. I'm like, these people don't care. Ghana is worse than it was 30 years ago because the population is bigger, the doctors are less, the facilities are still crap, and nobody is changing because Dibi Mamin Dibi. They figured it out, 8-year cycle. I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm like, wow, this is somebody who understands the system thoroughly and knows the cancer of the system, but you need that voice. And that
But also, don't you think it's time to walk your talk?
No, but you see, there's something. Let me. And I don't want to be like a lawyer for you.
No.
It takes tremendous hope to come onto the street. Like, you know, or maybe just like a refusal to know what's in front of you. Because the messaging, the protest doesn't lead anywhere. It won't change. They won't listen. You have to like die your mind about it and be like, I'm still going to come up. I'm still going to show up anyway. It doesn't matter, but I'm still going to show up anyway.
It's important to show up. What I admit, look, I don't think my position is the best position, but I'll tell you my apathy, the reason for my apathy. I'm disconnected in the sense that I feel like he said something that's very profound to me. He said, you're not going to see the change you want in your lifetime. But you're still doing it anyway. And the places that I love, I say second nature, but first nature, I feel more American than Ghanaian. I'll tell you why. The values of the country that America is, I know there are people like yourself in every corner of the country, every institution, IRS, FBI, CIA, wherever, that you cannot bribe that individual. And they are tenacious, and if it takes them 20 years, they will bring you to book.
Yes.
Bro, I don't care who you are. They have a former president who that's being tied with all kinds of legal issues because they are trying to hold him accountable. My my apathy towards Ghana is, I feel like the moral fiber is so corrupt that do I want to sacrifice my life for the Ghanaians who are on the streets, who are literally waiting for you to say, you see, Oliver, if you say you know armor, you see then lock him, you see say then off him, now we boost your phone issue. Jimmy and Ghanaians would literally,
I get it all the time.
your memory will not even be, no one is going to stand and say, you know what, for what Oliver stood for, we will not stop this fight. All of them will go and sleep, they'll become docile, and then they'll start laughing and mocking your family, whatever your loved ones are left holding the bag. So for me, I'm like, how do I make myself insulated from the issues that Ghana can lay on my, lay at my doorstep? But how do I become most effective? And I believe I can do so as an entrepreneur. And that is the path that I'm charting now. Wherever it takes me, I don't know. But my commitment is to make change in my immediate circle through my ethics, showing people that this can be done differently. And so help me God. But that is why I really don't, because I'm just challenging.
No, I mean, one of the things I think as well is, I was reading, so one of the, actually, incidentally, it's one of the books I read when I was in jail. Desmond Tutu's autobiography, the name escapes me now. He talks about so many different characters within the apartheid struggle. Many people who history does not remember. And there's one of them we talked about. I had to Google him for so long. It was like a lawyer who just decided that anytime people were arrested, he was going to be representing them for free. And that was like his role. And he was doing something. He was doing that consistently, and he would show up for them. It doesn't matter. He doesn't get paid for anything. And I just saw that there has to be little drops of, like the synergies have to align, from every space, right? And like, for instance, you talked about entrepreneurship. I remember I was on a space with, I don't know whether you know him, Sangu Deli.
Yes.
So Sangu, for instance, I mean, he and I were at Harvard at the same time.
Okay.
He's entrepreneurial and all those things. And I was talking to him on the space, and I was like, but why are you guys not doing something as well? Like, as entrepreneurs, you have to be able to support philanthropic initiatives. You have to be able to put money into activism and things which you may not be able to do even openly. You have to do through the back door. And it was like, Charlie, they'll come after your business. They'll do this. So I can't do that. Now, Sangu is like, and it wasn't from anything we said. When we had that conversation, it was clear that I was not going to get involved. Then he got arrested by the police. They stopped him. They searched him on the road. He got angry about it. Then he became, like, he's very activist now. He's talking about those who were arrested. He's going to put 50,000 cedis to help with the lawsuit. It's like,
Let's just hope that he's not using it to raise some money somewhere else.
For me, whatever it says, it is a journey for different individuals in terms of even how they're speaking up or what they want to do. It's going to take a process. And I'm patient with people's processes on that. I always use my own example, for instance, in terms of LGBTQ, as an example, that as progressive and as ultra-left as I consider myself to be, it was a journey for me. Like, I started from the point where I was like, even from young, I never saw anything wrong with it. But then somebody said to me that, like they want to adopt kids. And I'm like, why do they want to adopt children? Inherently, I hadn't dealt with my view on persons who were not the same sexual orientation as these are people who are like, back of the whatever I need to be thrown somewhere. And I have to be like, okay, as I am going through my own journey, I have to understand that on all different issues, people are also in a part of the process. In the same way that I was a point in Ghana where I was telling everybody flee, people are also there as well themselves. And I didn't consider myself as less of a human being when I was there. And I shouldn't have that kind of regard to anybody who is in that space in their life at any point.
The name Oliver.
Yeah. But wait, talking about Angel Maxine, shouts to her. She has been given asylum in Germany.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Shout.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Germany.
Yeah, you.
The name Oliver. Is it Oliver Tombo? Oliver Twist? Where did the name, have you ever asked your parents where it came from? What was the motivation?
Incidentally, so when I was born, my dad was one of those people who were like, I'm never giving a European name to my child. So I wasn't named Oliver. So I was only my other name. So you see my full name, Mause Oliver Barker-Vormawor.
Yeah.
So
the name is heavy, actually.
Yeah, it is. So Mause means God has heard my prayers.
Yeah.
That's what my parents call me even to this day. But then my dad and my mom were divorced even like when I was 1. So I grew up with my father. Apparently my dad says, I'm taking my son and that's it. So I was raised by my dad. So like in the beginnings, my dad was like it was like all I knew because I grew up with him. And then he got married to like my stepmom. And it was a really difficult period for me. And in like my readings, that's when I got into Charles Dickens and Oliver Twist. I felt like that orphan.
Yeah.
And that's where I started calling myself Oliver. And everybody around me, including my stepmom, was calling me Oliver. But in my mind, I knew why. And every time she called me by that name, it was almost like
trauma or trigger.
No, not even that. It was like it was triumph. Because she didn't know that was in reaction to
her
and what I was living, that I felt like an orphan, that I called myself that. But they teased me because I ate a lot, so they said Oliver asked for more. But anybody who has read Oliver Twist would know that Oliver asked for more, didn't understand the context.
Yeah.
Like every time you talk about food, Oliver asked for more, it became like a thing. But people never really knew why. Now, interestingly, when I went to the UK, I became interested in Oliver Cromwell. And, so Oliver Cromwell led the revolt against the monarchy, the People's Revolt, and then the monarchy was overthrown in the UK before it was later restored. And I started telling myself, oh, maybe that's why. But those are rationalizations and finding things. Okay. But the core is it's a young boy's, a little boy's search for this thing. I probably was like 7 or 8 at the time, this thing. So it's like, all through my life, people have known me as Oliver because the name, I took it on as a very young kid. That, even my parents, like when I was like my 10th birthday, my dad bought me a shirt with Oliver at the back. Like he had to deal with it, but nobody really knows where it came from. It's because of identification with somebody,
Are they still together?
No, they are not actually, but I'm actually really close with my stepmom.
Okay. And
it didn't come from like we repaired our relationship. It's like I had to do a process of healing and say that
I let it go.
I'm like very super close to my step siblings and all. But I did that process of like, having to let the past go in a way to put myself mentally in a space where she and I are very good.
Dope. So, fix the country, Occupy Julobi. I won't even think twice. I have been at every single protest, every single demonstration.
Shout out to Mbo on that.
The first demonstration that I went to was the first Kumi Preko.
You mentioned that.
I had to run away from home, and all that. And since then, I have been interested in, speaking out and all that. And, if you are alone, your voice won't be heard. So I believe in groups. I believe in, gatherings and all that. But there's one thing that always strikes me. I am usually hopeful anytime I'm going to a demonstration but I will get there and the crowd are not what I, imagined and all that. Most of the talk is on Twitter, Facebook and the internet and all that. And I believe that outside of the social media and the Twitters and whatever, there is a bigger world out there. Many don't know about these platforms and all that, but the main channel is through the Twitters and all that. What work are you doing to reach people who are not on tech?
Yeah. So one of the things which, when like the very first physical country demonstration, we tried to do it, and the government was insisting that why do you need your voice can be heard on social media? Why need to go onto the street and stuff? And one of the things I was always saying was that it's about bridging the divide between the online spaces and the offline spaces.
Yeah.
And at street level, coming onto the street is that process why we merge the different worlds of the country. But a lot of people don't know this, that the whole of September, October, November, December, January to mid-January, I wasn't in Accra anymore, I was living in the north. We're living in Tamale. And myself, we had like recruited like 100 volunteers and things like that. And we organized the new constitution for a new generation march on 7th January last year. It was only mobilizing in communities.
Nice.
Like we're doing this 24/7.
Yeah.
The only reason why we're able to do that was because we got a grant of $50,000 from the Open Society Foundation.
Wow.
It's really expensive to be out and doing this kind of community work. You know, and like, I mean, yeah, I've left my family and I'm there alone with like these people. We've rented a house and we are from morning to evening, from a.m. to sometimes at 1 a.m. because like they have a very night culture. Because I think because of the weather, they come out late at night. So we were going from groups to groups and meeting different groups and and that was like trying to educate them on the constitution and thing. And I always said it was a test of a model as to whether or not people can believe in this kind of appeal and things we're doing. 12,000 people came out on the day to demonstrate from the northern region. Wow. It was like the biggest thing they have ever seen. And so many people like, but why are you not engaging the NDC? That's what we are doing. And so like, no, our approach and our conversation is about something specific. We're calling for constitutional reforms. And we want our people to understand why it is tied into their livelihood. We're holding town hall meetings, we're holding small gatherings, all kinds of continuously speaking to people over and over and over again. That it worked. That's how I saw it. If we had the money and the resources to be able to do that kind of work, I have every belief that more people are going to be able to respond to it. But we don't have it. And sometimes you defer to social media because of it. I remember, I think one of the 7th January Pride, I think it was 2022, we wanted to do things community-wise. So that we go into communities and have these conversations. And we were trying to raise 22,000 cedis to be able to fund it. We couldn't. So we kind of ran a marathon on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and hold like virtual sessions all the time because we don't have the money to be able to do that. So that sometimes limits how much you're able to do onto the field. Because if you're sending people out to, even for the next protest, we're thinking of how do you bring a lot more people onto the streets and doing that. And we're kind of doing the budget, a conservative budget of 35 days, renting like Kia trucks, PA systems, having 10, 20 volunteers, taking care of just their feeding consistently and fuel was like 500,000 cedis.
Jesus Christ.
Wow. So it's the expense that forces you to scale down on what you're able to do rather than the resolve to wanting to be able to do that.
So one of the questions that I've also had, and you're definitely in the position to help us understand better, is I was wondering how we can be more effective, and from a lay perspective, because I've never organized anybody, I've never organized any type of project.
You've never organized anybody apart from
you know what I mean? That one I can organize a bit too effectively, actually. But you know, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, how do we make the government feel the pinch? So I understand that there's a protest hopefully coming on this dirty December. People want to be a bit more disruptive.
Through and through.
From my lay perspective, it feels to me as though December is when the common man gets his local fuel that is not government influenced and driven. Because Ghana is bubbling, everybody gets to make a little bit of money, some dollars pie for town. Everybody, they feel the benefits of melting those foreign currencies and enjoys a little bit. So the common person benefits mostly from dirty December. are we able to organize in a way that involves some of the private sector but huge industries? Like maybe there's a thing that I was told about recently that is blowing my mind. A young man that works for Goyle, he's an engineer, he's telling me that the Chinese have been allowed to build some form of refinery in Tema. It was done kind of clandestinely, and all of a sudden one day, boom, they see that the thing is up. But more importantly, they've brought in about 700 trucks to be transporting
This one, the pure intel. Oh.
yeah, they transport them oil and things. So it's about to put a lot of businesses, local-owned transportation businesses, out of business because now they don't have the need for them. And if they have access to these other stations who want their oil, then those people will just, because they can offer a better price, yada yada. Is there a way to include some of these, like the taxi drivers who, people who can shut down the economy to an extent?
Yeah, market women
And things, to make the government know that these things are about our sisters, our mothers, our brothers, our, young people. All of these, yes, it's affecting Ghanaians. We are living in the country together. And when I went to Kolebu, because I had an issue this year, immediately the doctor was willing to skip me over the line. And that frightened me because he said, oh, I could drop this guy, then I could do your surgery in 2 weeks. And I didn't do it. I mean, that literally made me want to bolt out of there. I'm like, oh, this is so unethical. I don't know which person you are taking away. I mean, I go pay a bribe to skip a line, but the skip a line allows commission, not when it comes to somebody's health or whatever. So I was very frightened. I'm like, whoa, this is what is happening to people. And you see a slew of, Charlie, bro, people, they like a crowd of people that are supposed to be getting healthcare. It feels like the condition at the Kolebu even make you more sick. So I'm like, anyway, let me get to my question. I don't want to go on a tirade. I'm just saying that.
That was helpful, actually. I would have listened to you over and over.
Is there a way we can involve these people? Because nurses are struggling. I know a doctor that comes to NRC. She hasn't been paid for 3 months, by institution. Can we draw these people in and let the government feel the pinch that people are sick and tired of your incompetence?
Now, let me give an example, 2 examples. Then I'll come to like this specific one. One of the things when we started like Fix the Country is that we went to see the TUC. And we had like a series of meetings with TUC and we're saying that, listen, you guys represent the entirety of the workforce. Your voice would carry. And I went back from the archives of the Constitution Review Commission and pulled out some of the TUC things they were asking for constitutional review. And it says, you can champion this as well with us. So mobilize with us. Then they locked us into an infinite, we need to consult, we need to talk more. We need to, so we'll go and meet this person. He says, okay, come back. We're thinking about it. Come, when we reach out again, come and meet us again. And it just kind of like fizzled out because, like I was saying, one of the things our politicians have figured about institutional capture is recognizing that even they're sponsoring elections of how do you call it? SRC on university campus.
Yes.
Like it's down to that level. So they have anything that could be a source of organized dissent, they'll capture. So that's the challenge. The second example is when the e-levy thing was happening. So we had mobilized against the e-levy, we're protesting in front of Parliament and all of that. And so I'd reach out to the telecom chamber. And I said, do you guys stand potentially to lose more from this? And so you have to be able to find a ways in which you can help push the civic angst and anger on it so that the politicians will drop it if you're afraid of blowback on your business. Let's do this quietly. I'm not approaching the telecom, I'm approaching the chamber. So you can have a way to support us on the street, to be able to educate and bring a lot of people into the street. They didn't take it. So sometimes I wonder whether or not how smart business even is.
No, they're not smart.
In the country, generally. And as to recognizing the ways in which they can be able to support different things. The being put out of business is one of the biggest drivers of pushing people down the poverty line more and more. Because a lot of our sectors, we are handing them off. In the past, the poultry industry was one of the biggest. Now, we don't have any poultry industry that can sustain demand for anywhere because nobody can compete with the cheap chicken that is coming from various countries.
Mm.
So that's one of my hope that we're able to do this more. Now, in the professional space, I actually believe that the heartbeat of the country is the GPRTU.
Yeah.
Like for instance, now the GPRTU will do some action and say, "Oh, we're going on strike like some 2 hours." Then you will see that they'll pack the trotros and be playing ball in the trotro stations, and the entire country grounds to a halt, and government will quickly run and meet them. They haven't been able to move that power beyond. There's a fuel increase. We want to increase trotro fares by 20%, 20 pesos more, things like that, into bigger social justice projects, saying that we need reform, and as a bloc, we are demanding trotro drivers are asking this of people, right? So that kind of process isn't happening on a scale in which we are seeing. The unions are not responsive to some of the appeals we are making in all the different kinds of sectors, that we started taking the long-term game of now building up alternative unions. So like, for instance, one of the new unions we incorporated was the Mental Health Nurses Union, which we're starting to work and try to get mental health nurses then to join the bigger umbrellas, a way in which those ones which we have captured, at least if we have people who are activists and sympathetic to our cause and be leading those fronts. But that process and of bringing in business, persons who are losing money, who are understanding of what is economically things that what is happening, being able to join and help push, even if they're afraid of their signature showing, they can do it in different ways. It's important to be able to build that. Now, one of the most courted people are obviously, like you give the example of the nurses. So like when it comes to elections, this person will make promises to nurses and nursing training, teachers and things like that. How they're able to make the skills fall from their eyes is the challenge. But the bigger thing we are fighting against is this belief generally that if you go to a protest, you will die. And it's like it's one of the biggest feedback we get when it constantly engaging people, the fear that they will lose their lives when they go to a protest. I don't know whether it came from the very first Kumi Prekon or whatever it is. But the truth is that very few people have died at protests. Or this thing, that the myth is larger than the reality of what happens during demonstrations. But people always feel like it's what are you going to do? Sit down. But I think that is also kind of culturally how we are raised. That where 2 or 3, like a group thing, your parents kind of want you to avoid going into any of those spaces and just be home. If not, you're going to die. I give one, to sort of end on this note, a funny take which happened at Occupy Junobi recently, where because we had blocked the intersection, there was a lot of cars which were not moving. And this old woman got into some fight with their mate. So I rushed there and tried to find out what it is. That they had decided to get down, they couldn't go, and they wanted the mate to give them the money back. And there was all these things, so we kind of found money for them. And I was talking to them, and apparently the mate had also said something like, "We are lazy people who don't want to go and find work." So they were then cursing the mate that this is the only work you would do. And I was begging, like, "Don't do that," that kind of thing. And as we were walking away, she was telling me about how she has like daughters and a son who have finished university, no work for them, years. She doesn't know what to do. She's paid huge fees in Gimpa for them. And she doesn't know. She's talking about this, and I really support what you guys are doing. And even my son wanted to come today. I told him to sit home, like he would have been here. And she says it without the irony of it. But she stopped the son from being able to join her, even though she supports what. So it's like, somebody else, but not my child. And I don't want you to get.
Oliver, I sometimes wonder if anyone in Ghana is going to be like, Mohamed Bouazizi. Burning himself, or like, is it going to get there? I'm not saying burning or committing harm.
The problem is what he talked about. That if he burned himself, Ghanaians would be like, wow.
But
there was something like that happened. That young boy who said, like, was so desperate that he went to climb electric.
That
was our Bouazizi moment. But
true.
Because we're not politically this thing.
And the people let him.
We missed it.
Just
recently, like the last protest, this dialysis thing Nasiba mentioned online. The journalists went to Kolebu, interviewed this 15-year-old girl. All the media houses wanted a piece of her. Thursday, 2 days later, she dies. It's reported that she's dead. Nothing happens. That's our Bouazizi moment right there as well. Like when the evidences of what the system is doing to us is shown to us, it doesn't
look.
do anything.
There are times that I feel that there's a variety of forces going on. Sometimes this woman that you run into, Ohianfobi, I don't know what tribe she is, but I'm just using that phrase. I've heard that several times. Onyafobi as in, we know the system is so corrupt that you already, I've spent money on you, my child. I can't even find work for you. Then you go and die for me, I beg you, relax for day. That may be one of the emotions or things that people are going through, right? But think about this as well. When people in this country know for a fact that, for instance, the person that you said died at Kolibu, people it should have been an uprising and go to the Kolibu and say, no, this has to stop. But generally, if I can only speak, people think I have a vendetta against Rawlings. I really don't. But I just take a lot of things from that perspective because that's when I was born, right? When you look at that era, the fear that was put into people as to what the government can do to a family or a group of people. If they capture you and they go and put you in police, you don't have money for a lawyer. My sister is a lawyer. I don't see her advocating. When things happen, she will tell me, Charlie Fred, you know what to do. Sort to the point where if she gets in trouble, now I'm the sorter because I've become so good at sorting. But the system makes you such that you feel like I don't have anybody anywhere. To the point a judge has told me, I keep telling Mutombo this story, that's when I changed my mind about being a stand-up person in this country against wrong. Because when I moved to Ghana, I went on radio. I paid with my own money to protest a wrongdoing. Some businessman, very popular businessman, I just want to say his name because I'm not ready to deal with him yet, but one day I'll deal with you. Just know that. Excavated our road, an industrial road, an asphalt road, in one breath. We woke up, the road was gone. Where did I not go? I went to Ministry of Roads and Highways. I went to LADMA. I went to AMA. I went to my local radio station and paid my own money to have a voice. The biggest pushback I got was from the townspeople. And I was speaking on their behalf because when the road was excavated, we lost power, electricity, we lost phone lines, and we lost access to water for 4 continuous months when nobody was doing anything about it. And they started saying, oh, they used my father's nickname to say, that man's son, they are too new, they like speaking big English. Don't worry, why are they trying to stop this man? Blah, blah, blah. And they of course, the people called now where we were not allowed at the radio station anymore. So when I wanted to pay and go and rebut what was being said, it wasn't allowed. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is people in their little small pockets are devastated and want to protest. But every corner you turn, because you have made mention of...
It's not true that you've not been to a protest before. I mean, this is protesting, right? Like, this is protesting.
We were on the street. Like, they went to call some chief to come and beat me up. We faced him. He ran away. May his soul rest in peace now. But people feel like if they take an inch, they will be pushed back. But because it's also so easy, like, you sit in front of somebody at LADMA, the guy told me that this is ridiculous. How can this happen? You send the boys there, blah, 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 bro. Like, Charlie, they silence and plus money. So then I'm like, until I have enough money to over-corrupt, because that's how we are going to win this fight. I want to have enough money where if you pay, I'll come back and pay. Say, Masa, because nobody has any loyalty to any principles or values anymore. They are thinking about their pocket. And maybe that is why it's so frustrating. I'm so inspired by you.
I really know what you were saying. You even said
just
something that reminded me of an earlier point you make, which I wanted to come back to, which is this idea of the policing, the system understanding that they will make the money off the streets and things like that. You'll be so amazed of the things they have monetized throughout the justice system. Like arresting people, putting them in jail, and you have to pay them, they will release you, or they won't take you to court. Your family will have to come and sort them out. Like the people already in the cells, they're not getting any food. No feeding. The family will come to give them some money. They will do.
It's a full-blown business.
Everything is so monetized down. And it's like we can't live like the inhumanity of it doesn't make sense.
They arrested 4 of my brothers. They said we have to pay, but this is 2017. We have to pay 2,500 each for us to get bail because they were trying to pretend that if you don't have a person that works for the government to bail you out, no one can bail you out. This was said in court. Just go on. I just wanted to...
And even when you're granted bail, you have to pay for them to... Because you need a surety. The police have to go and find where the person lives. Okay, they have to go and look where the person lives. He's there. If you come and say, oh, I'm not today, I'm busy. You can be... There are people who are there 6 months after bail. They're still there. Years after bail, they are there. Crazy. Because they have to be sorted. Like, everything is monetized. And The only way we can live a sane life is like look the other way.
Yeah.
And kind of just be like, I did my corner, they do my thing.
Yeah.
Ghana problems plenty. I don't go if you take everybody issue on top of my head.
Yeah.
Like even me, like I do a lot of pro bono work, legal work.
Yeah.
At some point I had to say, I'm only going to do children cases. Like persons below 18 years who are in conflict with the law. Because the shit's even happening to kids in the country. It's so insane that I don't, like it can't compute. It's even like my recent case of a girl who was raped and stabbed the guy who was continuously raping her. Then the state has charged her instead with murder. And I'm like, do you not understand?
Yeah.
So
Charlie.
no, you see, and that's the thing. A lot of the times, particularly lawyers as well, and that's why my biggest frustration. Like if I go and sit down with my buddies with a drink and things like that, and everybody's talking about their shit. Everybody's talking about all the things that have happened, the judges, the bribes, and this. None of them will speak publicly. Because nobody wants to be anybody.
They'll target you. You probably stop getting
And
cases.
so it takes a strip, and that's one of the things I say. Like when the military just upped and go and beat up people in a shaman, and I was just like after all the things we've lived through with the military, like this society can just like nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying anything. I couldn't. That was when I said I need to leave this country. To be honest, when the military went to do that in a shaman, and like the civic voices were quiet, I said I need to go. And I started speaking up. Like we sent volunteers, mobilized money, sent people down to go and record people's stories, and we're producing the report. Over 2,000 people affected by this, so that posterity may at least maybe remember.
Right, yeah.
That's the only way I was able to keep sane. Just the idea that in this era we can just deploy the military. Say some military person was attacked, so we are coming to the community. We didn't beat anybody and go. Like
That was crazy.
Charlie.
what?
That'd be the wild, wild west.
What?
It'd be crazy,
Like what?
Yeah.
So for me got me to the point of like I need to leave. Because if the society does not understand, like we can't accept this, then what's the point of what we are doing?
Yeah.
So sometimes you get to that point where you feel like
It's your nyonko, it's your dream. I've been mulling an idea in my head. I just want to run it by you to see. It's a couple of them. So when Mutombo is done, I'll probably ask you the other one. Question is that, what do you think? Obviously, we are being taken through the ringer by two-party system, right? This idea that we can organize the youth, will it have any effect if the youth sit out the next couple of cycle of elections? Like, just don't vote. Because whether we vote or not, this MPP and NDC, they're going to do what they do anyway.
Yeah.
What is the impact of, let's say, 1 million youth not voting at all?
Yeah.
How would it reflect or impact the country?
So, interesting question. I know the conversations around, whether this should transform into a political project has also been on the table. So I'll probably rope that question in. When we finished the very first protest, the FP, Foreign Policy, published an article about Ghanaian youth and whether it will make anything if we don't contest for power and things like that. Now, one of the things I genuinely believe around right, I am a big advocate of the right not to vote. Like people ought to vote and not vote depending on their conscience. I have never voted for the two parties before. And I say it as a source of pride because when I look at them, I'm like, I shouldn't elect a thief. Like, I'm not going to do it. But one of the things I do all the time is that I vote the CPP, even when I've walked away from it. Because I want something, anything that challenges the system, that, disrupts their comfortability about it, it's always assured. So I would be interested in a withdrawal of vote that is directed towards something that sends a political message. Now, low turnout can send a message, but the thing with the two parties is that even if they win with one vote, they govern as if they've won with a landslide. It doesn't matter to them. So I am always interested in people who are interested in third-party options and voting them just because. That's kind of my kind of advice generally to people. But also understand the no-vote thing and voter apathy that is growing more and more in people. But I generally want to believe that what people want to see is they want a particular response from the political class. They want that if they withhold their vote, that it sends a message and signal to them. And I don't know, between voting for a third party and between not voting, I prefer the third party option as a way to send a signal, in a way, I think.
So the extension to that thought process was, if we sit out the next two cycle of elections and we can properly organize ourselves, like you have a movement now, there's so many disenfranchised youth, maybe the CPP is too entrenched in their incremism and we can't afford to be just handing the country over to some people who have a different approach and idea. We don't even know what they're going to bring to us. Can we organize in that 8 years ourselves, our own political party that has our manifesto, our beliefs of what we see Ghana to be? Because as far as I'm concerned, where I sit, I've lost faith in the ruling class completely in terms of their leadership skills, their ethics, their morals. I don't believe in nothing they do touch. I don't want to be near it. But do you think it's something that we can organize ourselves, fresh ideas, fresh movement, fresh faces? Let's get to know each other.
I am completely with you in losing faith in the political class. One of my biggest pet peeves, say I will go some event and then I will invite some minister of something to come and headline and talk about something.
And they call him honorable.
It burns my soul.
Yeah.
Like it's like our people are refusing to learn. That's kind of my thing whenever I see these things happening around me. I think, all the attempts at running against the system haven't worked because none have tried this grounds up and gradual approach. Alan Tremantin goes, I don't believe that you can launch a movement at a 5-star hotel, and that's where you started from. I don't think that it's not going to work. I've seen so many independents on our ballots, and I think that just coming out of nowhere and putting yourself on a presidential ballot is not going to make people vote for you. It has to be a gradual build-up. Now, I'm genuinely hopeful that this process is helping us organize into those kind of structures. One of the biggest appeals I've been making is for young people who are interested in contesting for even just assemblyman election to come up and contest for those. Because I realized when I went to the north that the assemblymen play a lot of role, maybe not as much in urban areas, but more in the rural areas. They become like the centers of information and direction. When people say that they organize a meeting, people show up. That is power which young people can look to. And it's non-partisan as it exists now. But there's also a training ground to be involved at that level about what are the demands of local development in some regard. So the process towards organizing, this is the path, I think, towards being able to build something in that regard. In other countries, it doesn't take 8 years. So in Spain, for instance, they had a movement like that. The 5-star movement in Italy, like within some period, because people are intellectually conscious way more than we are in terms of how people are able to detach themselves from political parties. Now in France, for instance, with Macron's movement, the Parti Socialiste is completely disintegrated. Like all the old parties are gone. That now everybody else is finding now is like Bayreuth's movement and all kinds of movements are leading the way. That is what I'm hoping the future looks like. That there's a more loose coalition of individuals who can then remobilize themselves, present a set of ideas that voters are drawn to. As far as we are concerned, dedicated and continuous mobilizing has to be the goal. Like when we started this from the jump, people were like, "Oh, compete for election contest." I'm like, no. Right? Like, no, it won't work, first of all. I mean, I didn't even come into the space where I'm politically interested. I've always been very academic. And, I really enjoy reading. Yeah, a lot of philosophy, a lot of going back and forth on those things. And I've not lost the desire to go back to the classroom. Even if now things are difficult for me in finishing my PhD at Cambridge. I still what my long goal is. But I want to be part of a project that re-envisions and imagines or creates imagination beyond the status quo. And if it's helping organize a movement where that will bring about a process of competing against the two-party system, definitely, I think it's a generational responsibility to end the two-party system.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think Fix the Country would morph into a party, a political party?
One of the interesting things is that when we're putting together our charter, like I was the one who, I am also generally believing, I'm always very apprehensive about quick fixes. The belief that all we need is a different party and the problems will be solved. We need a continuous engaged citizenry. Like you gave the example of how you go to America. In every sphere of life, there's some people who are just dogged.
Yeah.
That is what is moving them much less than, Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
In everyday today American experiences, nobody talks about those conversations, which party you go vote for, or whether you're NPP or NDC, like in the way in which it has a resonance here. So we started putting together a charter, and then the question of whether or not it should move into a political party was on the table and part of the conversation. And I said, okay, in terms of how we put up the charter is like, it has to be more, I can't make that decision for future generations or people after me. But it has to be a process. So what we outlined was a process. That there has to be different levels of people and groups and constituencies that must vote and speak up in favor of. That this is the path, let's reorganize in that format for that to go. So we put a lot of work into the process question. You study it, do this and all of that. Because I'm mindful that, in the UK, I'm registered Labour. That Labour was born out of trade unions that came together and formed the party. So social movements can transform into that project. But what I'm interested in is that the non-partisan ethos of how we are mobilizing has been helpful in drawing people and centering people's attention to the things we are fighting of. It has to continue for some time. At the very least, I do feel like it hasn't blossomed yet. Because a lot of people are still waiting to see what happens after administration changes. And they're entitled to, because a lot of times, these things have sprung up. It's been politically interested people who want to use it as a way to launch themselves into the status quo. So
I have so many examples.
So people actually want to wait out and see what happens after and whether they'll jump into. And I know that that's one of the things that hopefully we can win minds. The challenge for us is that it's a psychological thing. People, even now, people are so tired of the scandals that they want to check out. And if, for instance, this government should lose, people are going to forget the experiences of how bad the NDC was in power, that they're going to be seen as change. That when you're appealing to them that, no, the struggle hasn't ended, they'll be like, Charlie, let's rest,
breathe small.
Let's breathe small, let's give these people a chance. And this but we know that the things are not going to be different. Because the entirety of the Fourth Republic has given us examples of how our vote is not changing anything. So those are going to be the crisis points for Face the Country. And how we come out of that to be able to generate goodwill will be the difference maker, I think.
Now to my actual question. So you have been sued, or I read somewhere that you've been sued by by Kandapar. Do you know Kandapar?
Which Kandapar?
The man who was stripped titties in for
Charlie. That be my tight boy in Pachi Poppy.
Albert?
No. Fuseni.
Okay,
I don't know. The young guy.
I see. Albert and I were at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I know him very well.
Yeah, he was stripped titties in for So
he's the Minister of National Security.
That makes it worse. So and the reason why you were sued is because of some utterances that you made about them offering you $1 million and also some appointments for you to go mute, for you to squash whatever you believe in, and you also said that you even have proof, you even have voice. Why did you talk about this? Why did you bring this out? And what do you think about
it's interesting that when they started reaching out to me, it was way before I was even arrested. I just knew that I needed to protect myself. So I got into the habit of recording. And the funny thing is, I wouldn't have talked about this till they left power. Because it's the Minister for National Security. And a lot of people are asking me, well, you said we were going to release the tape. Why haven't you released the tape yet? Now, remember when the thing was first tweeted by Face the Country's official account. This was because persons who were in the know of it, when we were arrested, I think in the motions of it, tweeted it out. But people haven't even made the connection, because at the time it was tweeted out, I was in jail. When it was tweeted out. So when I came out the next day in the media, and so I was a bit peeved that, you have to be able to understand what we are dealing with. And then the media asked me about it, and I confirmed that, yes, I do. And I have recordings of it. Then he denied it. So then a number of people reach out to me, persons in high places. Obviously, there are persons who are begging not to release it, national security, whatever it is. And so we worked out that, okay, one of my biggest fear was that putting something out, then they themselves will claim that I have doctored it and coming to arrest me. And then, and the way in which our media operates, a gag order, they won't, so then we announced that on advice of my lawyers, I was taken into the Office of the Special Prosecutor. The reason why we decided on the Office of the Special Prosecutor route was that it's a government institution. The government institution cannot authenticate it. It becomes a criminal investigation. This is what I am alleging. This is what you have. If you finish and come and tell us that you have investigated and nothing in it, it's the government, rather than me putting it in the media. So that's the approach we did. So we announced it. We announced it today. The next day, he said he has sued me. And I know that it was an attempt to preempt us going to the Office of National Security. Because what it would mean is that he'll become the second higher level person within the president's cabinet who then is arrested. Because once the criminal complaint has been, the special prosecutor's approach is that I don't care who you are, I'll arrest and give you bail. So he would have been the second person arrested. And I think that they were. I think that they played it in a way in which they immediately then went to file something in court. Still, I haven't been sued. I haven't been served.
Okay.
So I'm still waiting whether this is just a gimmick or what it is. But one of the things which, on hindsight, and this is where I think that, because I came out and I was clear, I confirmed it, and I said, yes, I have proof that I have this, which they didn't know that I had recorded this thing. A lot is still going around behind the scenes in this regard. I think my own mistake was it not remembering that, again, this is the Minister for National Security. And so now, the way in which we're going to approach it, and I'm happy that he has decided to sue, and we'll go the court route. Whatever it is, we'll put it out there, not me through playing on some radio, but through the court system in a way that insulates me. That's going to be I think, in hindsight, the best approach to deal with it. But I think some of the revelations about certain people, because remember, the people even within the Ghana Armed Forces that are involved, would have to be after they leave office, I think. If I'm being, security smart.
I commend you because some of us,
Shout.
I hope that the spirit doesn't leave you, that you continue the fight.
Pray, we should pray.
Because, Ghana needs it. We all have to play a role. Our roles may evolve over time, but you are at the thick of it right now. And from just sitting down and listening to you, I don't know if there could have been a better human being in terms of your skill set, your exposure, and your willingness to stand for what's right. So that's just kudos to you.
Kudos.
And I'm going to leave you with a very flat question because I think we've dealt with all the climatic or climaxing ones.
No, climax.
No, climax.
You don't want to the organized.
So I dey like him pass. I see a lot of similarities. If the organizer himself, sometimes things have to take your mind off of. But you've mentioned partner quite a bit. Since you've been on here. From when you were in Harvard to now. Is it the same partner you visited?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. My simple question to you is, how do you sustain yourself with all the work that you do in a relationship?
I think one of the reasons why I'm able to be here and doing some of the things I'm doing is that I have been with this person, I've been with her for long enough that we both understand that we have to evolve as people. And that in the earliest parts of our relationship, I don't think that any of these things I would have been able to do it. I don't think that she would have been in a place where she would have been understanding of where I am as a person. But we've traveled together, we've lived in different places. And that at some point, it becomes a question of understand that I don't necessarily support it because I think Ghana is useless, but I understand why this drives you, and so I'm going to support you as much as I can. For sometimes I had to block my father. Because my father is like, you've gone through all these things. I want you to become this thing. It's still that post-driven mentality around it that for him, I've thrown my life away. That at some point, it was becoming a source of depression for me that I had to mute him. Because I would wake up and I have dozens of messages, not only from him, from people he has spoken to about how his son is throwing his life away, is doing all these things, that I was like, this is becoming a source of something that is taken away from me. So I blocked him. I couldn't, But being with somebody who completely understands and is supportive of what it is and what it means, and a lot of sacrifices goes into it. And obviously, it's not a perfect balance. Sometimes, I have 1,000 things on my mind, because I'm doing so much. In the past, we'll talk about everything. My first interview, we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. We'll do this. There's so much happening that you don't even finding the time, where do I even begin? What do I talk about? What is this? We're not sharing as much with your everyday today life. with each other that it becomes a source of strain. Like, I just want to know what you're doing. And it's like sometimes in my conversations, like, oh, yeah, I met this person, and this person said X. Like, what? You met this person who ordinary is like, pfft, and now it's like just a footnote when we don't really know about. So those continue to creep in, you know. And incidentally as well, I haven't talked about this publicly as well, that I have a son now.
Oh, wow.
Shout,
Congratulations.
shout.
And for a long time, we didn't want to have kids, you know. And then, you know, incidentally, when I was arrested, she had come to Ghana and was holidaying in Ghana and was about to leave, and when she found out she was pregnant. So I was like, okay, wait, I'm coming to give this talk. The EU Commission has invited me. Let's fly back together. So I fly in, and I'm arrested at the airport, and I'm kept in jail. So I had the knowledge that she was pregnant at the same time that I was arrested, and perhaps it went into a huge part into us deciding to keep her, you know. And because she said to me point blank that this life you're on, I don't even know whether you're going to live long, and I want a piece of you. And that has to be something I have to contend with. And it's like having that conversation also about mortality and what this means is something that more and more is drawing on me. Like even throughout Occupy Julobi, some of the things I'll say, like I continue to reference my own frailty as a human being, that I may not be there for the full journey. And every day I understand it. You know, like a lot of things can happen. And so in that regard, so you're doing this at a time when you're trying to raise a young kid into the world, and there's so much happening at the same time. But I don't think I would be able to. She would be in a space if we hadn't gone through this journey ourselves to be able to be understanding and supportive and saying that, okay, we have a baby. Even she had to come down to Ghana to have the baby because I couldn't travel. My passport has been seized, so that I can be there for the better of my child. Those are decisions that you have to make, you know, and only somebody who is supportive and understands what it would mean to a father to be there present for the better of their first child, that she decided to make that journey, even if she's not very trusting about the healthcare system here. You know?
Yeah.
So those things come from a place of, I think, huge maturity, and I'm very grateful for the kind of
Shout out,
places that we
partner.
are-
Shout out,
we are-
partner.
But no, knock on wood. I really think that you are going to live long.
Yes.
Like usually that's how
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
these
yeah. I
things
think there's a
happen.
purpose to
You
your
know,
life.
Fidel,
You see it
Fidel,
through.
Fidel thought he was going to die at a very young age. You know, but see Fidel, he died in his 80s or 90s. Yeah, so Charlie, I believe. Last question. Your passport has been seized for a very, very long time. When you receive your passport, which first country would you travel to and why?
No, actually, so incidentally, we made an application and it was released temporarily.
Oh, okay.
I had to teach a program on social movements in Budapest.
No.
So this summer I was in Budapest.
Oh, then my question is invalid.
And then I left there.
Yeah.
And my partner and I were in the Swiss Alps.
Yeah.
For a period of time, for some time before I came back down and gave them their thing.
Yeah.
But I had to.
Okay, then let me switch that. We are still going to keep this question though. What makes you happy now?
Wow, that's a. I was hoping. That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
That's a very difficult one. You know, incidentally, I used to always say to people, like when you're talking about relationships and stuff, and like the value of how to judge a relationship is to ask yourself, are you happy? And the answer has to be yes in a particular point in time because everything is aligned.
Yeah.
I think now I'm more restless. You know, I'm more restless. There's a lot of doubt. Like people see you very self-assured and like this person is a person of conviction, is principled and whatever it is. But there's a lot of doubt as to whether or not this would mean anything. You know, and I live with that. So that's one of the things that I am always like in talking to anybody who is apprehensive of all of this. It's not lost. Like I have it, and I'm talking. It's like always pep talking myself into embracing it and accepting it. Like there are billions of people in the world that our lives and our realities don't have to conform to a particular narrative. We don't have to all live a certain way, and that is fine. That's you know restlessness is okay. It comes with it. Be fine with it. And yeah, it's something that I think I'm more restless than
happy.
Than happy, I think. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
But one of the things that people always tell me, and I think every activist as well, is trying to find the time for your own mental health and this thing. Because like this thing that you're blocking all the time, it changes your DNA.
Yeah.
It really does change you over time. And being aware of it, like I look, like doing all these things, whether you're afraid or not, like I am not made of bulletproof or Teflon or whatever it is. That even if not physically, emotionally, you feel it.
And like and that's even more grave.
You know. The challenge for me is continue. How do I remind myself to always be taking my BP meds? That's like that's one I need to figure it out. Like if I'm able to succeed in remembering always to take my medicine for my BP, I would be fine.
Fred,
Charlie, bro. I swear I could do this for another 2 hours, but I know we can't. So, Chief, you have to come back. You have to come back. There's so many other things that, even towards the end, he's talked about our relationship, strain on it. And then this BP thing, we've been talking about health. We have to get deeper into it. And some of the ways that we can be more efficient, more competent as people that the country is being handed over to. Shitty as it is, whether they like it or not, they will die. And we are the next line of defense. They are handing it over to us, and we have to... Charlie, a born leader.
Charlie. We thank you for coming. We thank you for coming through.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Charlie. Hey.
How you they end up? Just go drop the thing and walk away.
Mic drop. He go give you. They come up with outro every episode. So he go drop Charlie, out right now.
Well, Fred said it all. So what I'll add is, you know this, Charlie. You guys for subscribe, you guys for subscribe. You guys for tell your family members and your cousins and your grandmothers about the podcast. They should listen. They should tune in. Follow us on socials and know that, Charlie, we have had Oliver in the house.
For sure.
Yeah, Charlie. You guys for also check out Fix the Country on Twitter. Very, very active, You for follow and you for support the movement. We are doing this.
This is not
just for ourselves. Charlie. We are just doing this for
we all deserve
the generation to follow. And yes, like Fred said, we all deserve better. The F more, let's divide. Fred.
Yes, sir.
We are through.
Bang, bang.
Thanks, guys.
Charlie.
No, me, I don't make ready to say.